Hello and welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us again for another installment of our Canada Helps and Google webinars. Today we'll be tackling ad grants with Natalie Copas and Ben Wise. Just a heads up, this webinar, in alignment with a lot of the other webinars that you've been experiencing over the last couple of months, is going to be recorded, but we'll get into all of that and all the particulars in terms of how you can interact with us, because there is still an opportunity to do that. But before we get started, as always, we want to do a land acknowledgement. So our team at Canada Helps is grateful to have the opportunity to meet and work on the many Indigenous homelands across this land that we share in Canada. As settlers on these lands, it's important to acknowledge that our Vancouver offices are located on the unceded territory of the Coast Salish people. The Montreal offices are located on the Kanien'kehá:ka Mohawk territory. And the land in which we operate in Toronto is the traditional territory of the Wendat, the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. We want to express our respect for the territories we reside in and honor the diverse Indigenous people who have lived and worked on this land historically and presently. We, the staff and leadership at Canada Helps, are committed to being active participants in reconciliation. We're committed to continuing to amplify Indigenous voices and learning how our work affects Indigenous people. And now a few housekeeping things before we get started. If you are having any trouble hearing us, there's a few things that you can do. First, obviously, turn your volume all the way up to the top. Still not hearing us, then there's a few other troubleshooting options for you. In the GoToWebinar panel, you can click on Sound Check under Audio, and then select the Speaker tab, and then turn the volume on the speaker to the far right all the way to the top, and hopefully you'll be able to hear us then. For the best webinar experience, please do try your best to close all other applications off. It does help the webinar run smoother and obviously helps with the attention as well. And yes, we will be sending links to the webinar slides and the recording to you within 24 hours, and you'll be able to watch the recording on demand. And obviously this one is going to be recorded anyway, so you will be having access to this immediately after this concludes. And another note is that you can hear us, but we can't hear you. So if you have any questions, type them into the question log at any time. For recorded webinars, it's a bit different in that we'll get all these questions afterwards and we'll send them to our presenters who will be able to answer those questions for you. But please interact the same way that you would anyway. So if you have a question, type it in, we'll be able to get them to them. And with that, I'd like to pass the mic over to Natalie and Ben. I think I'm passing it over to Ben first, so over to you.
That's right. Awesome. Thank you so much, Phil. Appreciate the intro. And to you and Canada Helps more broadly, we appreciate the partnership in bringing these to life. As Phil mentioned, my name is Ben Wise. I lead one of the media teams here at Google, and I'm here with my wonderful colleague, Natalie, who is one of our amazing search specialists and account managers. Outside of our core roles, both of us are very involved with the Google for Nonprofits program that I'm going to give a bit of an overview today before I pass it over to Natalie. So the plan for today, kind of checked off the first one, intros are done, but I will give a kind of a high level view of the Google for Nonprofits program. We're going to be going to ad grants in detail, which is obviously a big part of that, but I want to make sure that everyone understands what else is available, because Google does provide a lot of our services for free or vastly reduced to charities across the country. From there, I'll pass it over to Natalie, who's going to be doing a deep dive today into the Google Ad Grants program, particularly on how you can drive success with your search campaigns. This is a follow-up to a webinar we did together with Canada Helps a few months ago. That was more of a like, how do you get your first campaign set up and off the ground? This is going a little bit deeper now that you have a live campaign to make sure that you are ready to get the most value out of it that you can. Right, so to jump into the high level view, Google for a long time has really understood the importance and the role that nonprofits and charities play in quite frankly, in changing the world. I don't think that's at all an overstatement. But also we understand that running and operating a nonprofit comes with a unique set of challenges that may be different than government agencies or for-profit companies. Things like organizing and collaborating across your staff, or in many cases your volunteers. How do you manage the impact and the scheduling and the work with those volunteers? How do you, as a small organization, raise the awareness both about the organization and the cause that you're striving towards in your mission and how do you use storytelling to do that? And then at the end of the day, you need to pay for the things that you're doing and the impact that you're making. So how can you use some of these tools to drive donations to your organization? It's kind of with that understanding, over a decade ago, it's amazing to think how long it's been, Google launched what we call our Google for Nonprofits program. And this really exists to empower nonprofits and charities like yourself to use Google tools to help you find the time and effort to focus more on your mission, to help make it easy to run your organization, easier to do fundraising, so that you can focus on the reason that you exist, to fulfill those mission and support the people and causes that you are committed to helping every day. There's a number of different elements within the Google for Nonprofits program that have evolved over the years. It's become a huge organization across the entire globe. So, I mean, this number is a couple years old, but, nearing 70 countries, and, a third of 1 million nonprofits across the world. So it's incredible just to think of the size and scope of the program. And then, as I mentioned, there are a number of different tools and options that fall within this. So the first one listed here is Google Workspace for nonprofits. So this is, your Gmail, your calendar, your docs, all of those things that are provided at no charge or at a discounted rate for the enterprise version for nonprofits. There's the Ad Grants program, which is obviously the focus today. This is where any registered charity in Canada or globally where the program runs can get $10,000 USD per month to spend for free in Google Ads. So that's over six figures annually to spend on Google search ads to help drive awareness and donations and other activity for your cause. Those are probably the two bigger pieces. There is a YouTube for Nonprofit program that brings you some extra capabilities. And for organizations that are heavily focused on kind of geographical things, there is a credit provided for use of Google Earth and Google Maps. One thing that's not listed here that we know a lot of nonprofits use is Google Analytics. That's not listed here because that's actually a free product for anybody. And we have run webinars in partnership with Canada Helps in the past. We actually have another one coming up later in October, so stay tuned for that. It is a extremely powerful and free tool that is kind of crucial to anyone operating online. So that's kind of the high level overview of the program. If you have, well, we'll share a little bit more detail at the end in terms of some key links and resources if you haven't registered for these programs before to help you get started on the program. But we did want to make sure everyone has that understanding going in. And with that, I will pass it over to Natalie for the deep dive on driving success with your ad grants.
Amazing. Thanks, Ben. Before I dive in, I want to share a bit more about me. Prior to joining Google, I was a nonprofit marketer, and I understand where you're coming from. So I've curated these slides to make sure that they're really relevant in how you can improve results. So whether you're looking at Google Ads on a monthly, weekly, daily basis, there's never a bad time to optimize. So this, as Ben said, this is the second ad grant session that we're holding this year. If you missed the last session, you can watch it to understand why you need conversion actions, how to set them up, how to set up a campaign from beginning to end, and the benefits of using conversion-based bid strategies. But for today's session, we're really going to be focusing about going a little bit deeper and focusing on what are the tools to improve your campaigns. And at the end of this session, you should have a really good understanding of what you can do to maximize your results. So first, we'll start off with the campaign health. So like anything in any real life situations, we know that if someone isn't healthy, it throws things off. So the same type of thing goes for your campaigns. If the campaigns aren't healthy, something isn't working efficiently. And so putting myself in your shoes, I know nonprofit marketers often have fewer resources and the scope of a marketer is constantly evolving. So there's so much that you're doing. So I've made it really clear on how can you do this as simply as possible. And so to do that, we thought of how do you evaluate your campaign health at a glance? And we'll explore 3 tools that will help you do that. So diving in first is optimization score. And what is optimization score? It's really an estimate of how well your Google Ads accounts are set to perform. And so it's a percentage from 0 to 100, 100 meaning that it's optimized to its full potential, but letting you know where there's room for improvement. And it's aware of your campaign goals. So if you set it to drive donations, it's aware of that so that it surfaces the right types of recommendations that will drive the biggest impact. And the reason why I always say to focus on optimization score, or we call it OptiScore, is because these insights these recommendations are insightful, effective, and efficient. And they can be found under the recommendations tab in Google Ads. So when we think about it being insightful, it's about leveraging real-time signals. And so that might be where it's able to predict when volumes are expected to be higher or when you might need to raise your budgets. And from an effective standpoint, you're able to prioritize and see where can you make the biggest impact. So you see on this screen that there's small percentages in blue. That says how much of an impact you're going to make. So if you had to pick only a couple, you can see which ones are going to make the biggest impact there. And then on an efficiency standpoint, from this page alone, you can apply and scale these recommendations very easily. So you can click on apply all or see what works best for your business, but it's a really quick and easy way to implement some of these recommendations. And again, these recommendations kind of go really across the board from strategic to tactical. They're not just hygiene related optimizations. It's really about thinking about market factors more broadly as well. And when you think about how many recommendations there's over 120. And so it's really covering a ton of different things to think about. It's also a really good opportunity to learn more about certain areas. So whether it's bidding and budgets, ads and assets, keywords and targeting, automated campaigns, measurement and repairs, it surfaces all sorts of these types of recommendations. The next tool that I wanted to bring to your attention is the Insights tab in Google Ads. So the Insights page really helps you from anything from monitoring, understanding performance, identifying market opportunities, optimizing performance. But what I really want to call to your attention is the diagnostic or troubleshooting feature that's shown on this slide. So Diagnostic Insights, really what it does is it shows when something's off with your campaign. And so even in this screen grab, what it shows is that there was some sort of policy concern or issue that came up, and there's an option for you to fix it right then and there. But it will show specifically for if there's any campaigns in your account that are having some sort of troubleshooting issue, they'll be here. So again, a great tool to look at a glance. And the last tool from a campaign health perspective is leveraging campaign statuses. So if you go to the campaigns tab, again in Google Ads, you'll see all your campaigns listed. So each campaign will have one of these statuses. If you're eligible, you're in great shape. If it's some of the other ones, you may want to look into it further. The most common status that you'll see other than eligible is eligible limited. And so what this means, again, is that it's not operating at its full potential. It might be that you're limited by search volume or you're limited because of budget or other reasons. Often there's links that you can click in to read more about it, but it's something that you'll want to fix to make sure that you're operating at the full potential and not running campaigns inefficiently. So that's the wrap on campaign health. Next, we head into the keywords. And again, on the keyword side of things, it's so important to make sure that we have great keywords because they're such an important driver of our campaigns. So as I said, keywords are extremely important. They really tell our campaigns when to serve the ads. And so because user behavior is constantly changing, it's good to have a pulse on how keyword performance is going. So together we'll look at the keyword report, what to look at, how to add other relevant columns, and then what do you do with a quality score data. So as I mentioned, keyword performance can change quite a bit depending on the time of year. So consider the term holiday donations. It's unlikely that the keyword was relevant in the summer months, but would be really relevant coming up. So looking at the previous year at, say, that time of year, that would give you some great insights. But again, when you're looking at whatever keyword it might be, make sure that you don't set the time frame too narrowly, otherwise you won't be able to draw the right conclusions. So what you might ask yourself is, how are your branded terms performing? What are the other keywords that are performing well? And so you can use the filter function to look at a specific keyword. Otherwise, what you can do is in this first column here, you see that that's where the keywords appear. Then I'm going to highlight a couple other relevant columns here. So next you have the status. So the status appears again. So understanding, is it eligible, or maybe there's a different message that's showing up. So here you see quite a bit that the eligible and limited is showing up. A lot of them have to do with quality score, which we'll chat about. And then there's these other metrics. And these other metrics are really interesting and helpful to determine when your ads are being served, what's driving the action that you might be desiring, whether it's a conversion or a click. So understanding that is really important. But not all of these columns may show up by default. So the quality score, oftentimes you have to add it as a new column. And so just be mindful that this is something you have to add in, but it plays a very important role in terms of your overall ad rank and your likelihood to serve an ad. So we'll dive into how do you actually add this column. So to add more columns, you can go to at the top there, click on the columns, then modify columns. There's going to be a ton of different metrics on what you can and can't add. You can search at the top if you know already a certain metric that you're looking for, in this case, quality score, but by all means, definitely look through and see if there's other ones that are relevant. So definitely check off that quality score option. Okay, so I've said the word quality score a few times. You might be wondering, but what is quality score? And it's a score assigned based on a combination of your ads, keywords, and landing page and how they work together. So if your top keywords aren't on your landing page or aren't in your ad copy, that's something that you might want to tweak to make sure that your ads are as relevant as possible to what you want to when you want to serve an ad. And if it's not a score that's 10 out of 10, that's not a bad thing. It's more to be mindful of what are some of the lower performing scores that caught you off guard, and how can you use this as a tool to improve overall performance. Okay, so quality score, we covered that and the keywords. It's a great tool to measure the relevance, which really is where we're going to be focusing in this next section. So all of what we talk about in this next section, which is definitely a meaty section, is all about how do we improve the relevance of what we serve to users searching. So if we take a step back, you might be asking, why does relevance matter so much? And it's because it's a big part of the equation when you're serving an ad. So yes, there's a bid that you have in place that you set, but equally as important is the quality score. Again, so how relevant is that ad? And so we want to make sure that we're serving what someone's looking for in that moment. And we really aspire to do that at Google to make sure that the right type of ad is showing up for the right query. Right, so ad rank is what determines the ad position on the page. And again, it's this formula here. And the quality score is such a critical component, again, as I said, so that's what we'll be looking into to figure out how can we make things even more relevant. Okay, So beyond having great headlines and descriptions, it's really important to have assets. And assets, what they do is they allow you to share even more information that can serve as an extra hook for a user. So on the right, you'll see a scroll of some of the most common assets. And today I'll go over a few of them that I think will be most relevant for you. And you might have heard of extensions before. These were previously extensions and are now renamed as assets. So if that's something that you are familiar with, it is the same thing, but has been renamed. Okay, so let's take a step back and understand what's happening when people search. If you're anything like me, you very much appreciate an image when trying to make a decision. And it's why we look at pictures of places that we might want to travel to, or for me, when I go to a restaurant, I like looking up sometimes the photos before I order. It really helps, images really help users understand messages more easily and also take action faster. And so in 2023, users are really expecting a more visual experience. So when we think about what does that mean from the asset standpoint, this can be a couple different things. So first is adding business names and logos. It's one small but easy tweak that can make an impact. So on the left, you'll see Balmy Sun Hotel. That's kind of popping out there. This is only emphasized to show you where the logo and the name would go. But really, uploading something as simple as this can increase your performance by 8%. And this is only one of the several assets that we have. So definitely consider adding this. And then the next is having images. So you'll see that image beside the text ad. So not only do images help people make a decision faster, it takes up more real estate on the actual search results page. So if you're thinking of looking at a phone, it takes up quite a bit of that screen, which is awesome. You want to make sure your image doesn't have a logo or text and it's a clean image. But I do want to flag that having images may not be eligible. You may not all be eligible to this feature. So I'm going to call out a couple of the requirements for advertisers to use image assets. So you need to have a good history of policy compliance. You need to have a Google Ads account that is an eligible vertical or sub-vertical. So some sensitive verticals like alcohol, gaming, healthcare. I know specifically the healthcare, maybe some of you might categorize as. These unfortunately are ones that aren't eligible for image assets. But there's lots of other assets that we can feature to make sure that your ads are relevant. But otherwise, the other requirements are a Google Ads account that has been open for more than 90 days. So don't expect that this will be something that shows up right away. And then again, a Google Ads account with active campaigns. So you need to have this criteria, so be patient, but if you are eligible, definitely something to consider to increase the relevance and help users make those snap decisions. Okay, next are site links. So you can provide a ton more information through using site links. Look at how much real estate and area you can do this. So it's the perfect way to direct a user to a page that's even more relevant. So while that main ad might direct them to a donation page, you can have site links direct them to other spots, whether that's volunteer opportunities or events or those listed that are highlighted in the red box there. Typically, I believe it's a requirement to have at least 2 site links for the ad grants, but what we'd say is add as many that are relevant. It's a best practice to have 4 site links or more to constantly being able to show people whatever's relevant to their potential search query. Awesome. So this this next asset is called callout assets. And again, another very quick win here. When we think about kind of the content and copy that we can add, callout assets are really designed to call out your value prop. So I've highlighted what Heart and Stroke did here. And again, it's a feature where you can call out something, whether it's tax receipt or matching gift. It doesn't necessarily need to be something that's been written in your headlines or descriptions, and it's an opportunity to add something more. And that's why it can become even more relevant for someone searching, because it's maybe different content than what you've already put, again, increasing the overall quality score. So again, adding research, highest priority needs, whatever might be unique to your nonprofit, that's what I would suggest highlighting here. And using Heart and Stroke again, so the next type of assets are structured snippets. So this is more of like a categorization of what you offer. And here you can see that Heart and Stroke chose to offer the different types of ways that you can donate. This is a great way that they've used structured snippets, but it doesn't always need to be types. You could have, there's a different set of drop-down headers that you can use. So it could be brands or models, styles, neighborhoods. There's a ton of different options that you can look between, whatever is most relevant for your organization. But what's really important is that whatever you do select, that they're all tied together, and that they're fitting within that category. Otherwise, it won't be approved, or it won't be served as often as you'd like, and you're not reaping the benefits of structured snippets. So what I'd say is less is more, definitely with this one, but try to think of what is most relevant when it comes to some way that you can categorize what you're offering. And with all of the assets that I spoke about, you can apply them on an account, a campaign, or ad group level. I would suggest starting with applying them across the account level if they're relevant. You can start when it comes to capacity, like that's a great way to save some time if it's relevant to all the different campaigns. If you do have more time, that's where you can start considering what might be certain assets that are more relevant to certain campaigns and starting to tailor it to be a little bit more customized to the specific message. But I'd say having it in general is better than not. So start with the account level, and then you can go more granular as you have more assets available or you have more capacity to do so. And just before I head into the platform metrics, it's great to also see, once you apply these assets, how does your quality score change over time? So definitely go back to that quality score piece of it and see how are they performing? How has it changed over time? Have you increased a higher quality score in certain areas than others? It's definitely a metric that's good to look back on. Okay, so we've already looked at a few in-platform metrics, but I want to call out a couple that will really highlight the opportunities that maybe you might be missing. So I'll dive in. So this is a typical view when you arrive in the campaigns tab, and the number of columns is truly whatever you want it to be. So feel free to use again that columns, modify columns feature again. But these are some of my favorites. And so you always want to make sure that whatever bid strategy you're using, you're including that metric. So if you're using a conversion-based bid strategy, you'll want to make sure that you're seeing how many conversions it's driving. And similarly, if you're using a clicks bid strategy, that you're looking at the clicks. So otherwise, the metrics that are interesting here are The impressions overall, like how many times are your ads being shown? The cost, definitely an important one, but two that are my favorite and definitely stand out are the search impression or the search lost IS budget and the search lost IS rank. And IS stands for impression share. So impression share is really the impressions you received divided by the estimate number of impressions you were eligible for. So we'll go into that in more detail, but definitely look at these often and understand how are they changing over time. You can filter for different time periods, or if you've made a recent change, this is definitely helpful to look back at. So here I'll go over two different scenarios and we can kind of do some scenario planning here. So really, as I said, search impression share loss to budget. This tells you when you could have gotten more impressions, but unfortunately you weren't able to because you didn't have the sufficient budget there. And so it's equivalent to being like a store where you have a store open and all of a sudden it closes during the day. That's kind of like what this is doing when you're losing impression share to budget. Someone might have been looking for your specific ad or looking for your specific organization, but for whatever reason, you couldn't have shown up when they were searching maybe your brand. So something like a scenario that might come up is if you're losing impression share to budget by about 30%, what should you do? So there's a couple different ways that you can look at this. So one is if you have more budget and you're willing to spend there, definitely add more budget so the campaign can run at the desired efficiency and capture as many more conversions as possible. It's the other scenario where it's often more challenging is if you don't have extra budget, now what do you do? So when you don't have extra budget and you're seeing this flag come up or you're seeing that column show a percentage, look, there's a couple things that you can do. One, you can look at the other campaigns and see how are they performing. If they're performing at a completely different level, maybe worse than what you're seeing, there's an opportunity to shift that budget to this campaign to say, okay, let's fund the campaigns that are performing as best as possible for you. If the results are maybe similar across different campaigns, what you can do is you can adjust your bid strategy. And so what this does is it says that you're going to be bidding differently and it shrinks the pool saying, okay, I'm going to maximize the budget. So I know that this one can be maybe a bit confusing. So if you have a bid strategy of $5 per conversion and you're bidding in the auction and it says that you're limited by budget. So it's saying, okay, I'm willing to pay $5 for all the people out there. If you say that you're only willing now to pay, say, $3, then that shrinks the number of people that are the auctions that you're eligible for, and it will maximize the budget that you have. And naturally, that impression share loss to budget should go down. So when you make a change like that, wait a week, see how it might change and adjust accordingly. But again, the options are if you have the budget, definitely fund it if you're happy with the efficiency that you're paying. So maybe it's like the cost per acquisition or action. If you're happy with it and you have the money, fund. If not, look at your other campaigns and potentially shift budgets or adjust your targets to maximize the budget that you have. The next scenario is how to interpret impression share loss to rank. So this one's a little bit differently because what it's saying is that if your ads were more, you're losing out on auctions or impressions because potentially the bid or the quality score wasn't good enough. And so if you have a scenario where you're losing impression share to rank and it's at 40%, that's where you want to think, okay, what would you do in this scenario? And so definitely a first tip is if you're seeing this, revisit the assets page and make sure that you have all the assets possible applied to your campaign. As we already chatted about, this is the #1 way to improve your quality score and not introduce something that might cost more money. So add more, monitor how they're doing over the next couple weeks, and see how this metric changes. If you already have assets in place, then I would definitely use the Auction Insights tool in Google Ads. And so what this helps you understand is have maybe more or less competitors entered the auction, so the keywords that you're also bidding for during this time frame. And that will help you understand if you did nothing, it might be that you're not able to show up as much because someone else is now competing with you for those auctions, and their rank may be more relevant, they may be paying more money, they may be more, they may have a higher quality score. So it's really important to understand like what's going on. Is there a new peer that has entered the auction? And again, we don't know what changes that they might have done, but if there is a new advertiser in the auction, then what you can do is you can potentially increase your bid if it's feasible, or monitor over time to see how you might want to alter your strategy. And I mentioned Auction Insights, and I don't have a screenshot here, but where you can find that is under the Insights tab, you should be able to see Auction Insights. And you can see this on the account level, or you can drill down to a specific campaign that you might be seeing this metric change. So again, what we're seeing is if you most often what happens is this can change over time. So if I think of if you had the term, again, I'll use holiday donations. So if you had the term holiday donations or a holiday specific campaign in September, you might not have been losing impression share to rank. Maybe there was fewer people bidding for that term, but then come November, December, there's a lot more competition and a lot of other peers that might be also relevant. And so it's interesting to see the change over time and how you might want to alter your strategy or your bids or overall messaging to make sure that you're still relevant. So that's a good example of it's not always the same. Monitor it over time because themes or different queries can change this quite a bit. Okay, so last but certainly not least, we look to learn more about who are we reaching and who are we serving ads to. And so very important question. And when I think about it, if anyone were trying to sell something to someone they don't know, a complete stranger, it would likely be pretty challenging because you wouldn't know what's relevant to them or kind of what they might be looking for. And the same goes for ads. If you can tailor the message and be more relevant, they're more likely to interact and click on you. So if you know that someone's interested in something slightly different, highlight that as an option in your responsive search ad headlines. And that's the beauty of having so many different options because it understands the signals and matches those options. So, but how do you actually understand and know who these people are? And the way to do that is by adding audiences as an observation in the audience tool. So within Google Ads, there's an audience tab, and what you can do is you can edit the audience segment. And so this will allow you to learn more about who is interacting with your ad, who's converting, and kind of all the metrics like that. Where are the impressions being served? You can choose from pre-selected Google audiences. So that might be people in the market for something, and you can select these all custom to what you might be interested in knowing about, but it's in market, a life-changing event, kind of more broad interest targeting. So you can select all of those, or you can upload a custom audience list to understand what's happening with your existing donors or customer list? Are they searching? Are you serving ads to them? Or are you reaching net new people? So uploading that really gives you a good understanding of who are you serving, how might you want to speak to them differently, and understanding that you can tweak your ad copy accordingly to make sure that it's as relevant as possible. Okay, so we covered a lot so far, and I thought that what would be most helpful would be having a one-pager or some sort of checklist to make sure that you're on the right track. And so here I've broken it out by each section to understand what are the kind of must-dos or things to revisit on a monthly basis. So if not more frequently, but on the campaign health side of things, leverage the tools we have to understand your health. This is easy to do at a glance, and you can apply the recommendations right then and there. So definitely do this often. If you can do it more frequently than a monthly basis, this is kind of the best way to make sure that nothing's broken in your account. Then next, we think about the keywords. And again, if you're able to review this on a monthly basis, it will give you potentially different information and give you an insight to what is the user behavior at that time, and if there's maybe new keywords that might be relevant, those will also surface in the recommendations tab. But you can understand how are they doing and what is the overall quality score and has that changed. So I'm not sure if you noticed, but earlier there's an option to put quality score and then historical quality score as a column. You can see how that's changed over time to see maybe you need to tweak your assets to make them even more relevant. Speaking of assets, use assets. If you haven't already enabled assets on your ads, make sure you're doing this. This is the easiest way to convert more users at your desired efficiency. So again, adding all of them that you're able for, and feel free to look at what your peers are doing. Like you can even search them, and I'll go through a resource, but an ad transparency library to see how are your peers using these types of assets in their campaigns. Next is the in-platform metrics. So we really want to understand what is the impression share and what's going on. So you can see, are you limited by budget? Where's there opportunities? Are you losing all of a sudden? This is really helpful to see if you've had some sudden changes in campaigns or you've made a big change. This is something to keep an eye on. So look here often. There's even a graph view in Google Ads where you can see how it tracks over time. So definitely look at the search impression share loss to budget and search impression share loss to rank. And lastly is the audience insights. Know your customers or know the people that are searching for you. So to improve your overall results, you need to understand who is interacting with your ads. So don't be afraid to use the Google audiences or your own first-party data to better understand who is engaging with what types of messages. So I'll wrap up with some additional resources. If you're ever stuck, we have an amazing set of resources at your fingertips. So I will jump into a couple that we'll call out, but most importantly, we have an ad grants community, and it's a great place to ask questions. So if you have questions, feel free to look here at featured posts or what's already been done. Great resource. The other is looking at case studies of other nonprofits who have had success doing what you're looking to do. So read through them, see the challenges that they went through, what made them successful. These are often great thought starters of how do you take that next step? What should you do next? And not all of them are the same. They don't have the same goals and objectives. So check out what might be most relevant to you. And then finally, this is a ton of other resources that you can have at your fingertips. Two new ones that I've added that are interesting are Google Trends. This isn't a new tool, but something that will allow you to monitor query or search volume in a very timely manner. So if you're curious, what's the volume on a certain keyword, definitely use that. The other tool that I mentioned a bit earlier is the ad transparency library. So this allows you to see ads from any advertiser, and it gives you an opportunity to see inspiration, see what they're doing, how you might want to tweak and leverage assets overall. So definitely take a peek there. So that brings us to the end. So thank you so much for tuning in today. We really hope that you found this session helpful. Please add your questions to the questions log, and the Canada Helps team will make sure that they come back and share them with the Google team. So thank you, and I hope that this was a good use of your time and that you have a great holiday season ahead. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Natalie, and thank you to Ben. Super informative session, as always. Love that we were able to dive in so deep, and love all the resources, especially that resource for all the success stories that we can really dive into. We are going to ask for questions, and we'll make sure that we get them to you, but there was one question that usually pops up, and I was hoping that maybe we could end kind of diving into that one question and kind of leaving off on maybe like a tip. But essentially, it's, while all the information is really, really good and lots to dive into and lots to refer back to within this recording, what would you say to a nonprofit that is looking at all of this and just feeling like it's a lot or it's overwhelmed? Like what encouragement could you give to them?
Yeah, I would say don't be afraid of the platform. Go in, play around with it. There's never a bad time to start. And if you ever get stuck, chunk out each of those sections kind of one by one. So maybe tackle the campaign health section first and dive into that. And then you can start with something next. You don't need to do this all at once. And so my advice would be, don't be afraid of the tool. Do check into Google Ads when you can and play around with it. Oftentimes you see new and different features, and that's the best way to learn. So that would be my advice.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much. I think that's a great place to leave it. So thank you everyone for joining in and watching this presentation. We'll have another one for you in late October. All right, have a good one.